Hello geometry scholars. Today we are going to start our ELT doing a review of solving equations. Remember, when we solve equations, our goal is to figure out the value of this variable. First things first, I look for parentheses. I notice that there aren't any parentheses in this equation, so I don't have to worry about that. Yay. Now I look at each side of the equation separately, and I look for like terms. I see on the left side of the equation I have a 4 and then a -5. I'm just going to combine those into a -1. After I combine my like terms, I look for my variable and make sure it's only on one side, which it is. So now I can go ahead and solve like normal. I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and then I get -x equals a -5. Is my variable isolated yet? No. In front of every variable, there's actually a 1. So this would be a -1x equals a -5. So I'm just going to divide that -1 out, and I'm left with x equals 5. After you solve your equations, the next thing you're going to do is how to solve for the missing variable when given a triangle. Important things you have to know. All angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. And then when you see this right here, this means that you have a right triangle, which means that one of the angles, this one right here, is 90 degrees. If you know those two things, the rest is a piece of cake. So to solve for x, I'm going to add up my three angles and set them equal to 180. So I'm going to do x plus 64 plus 90 plus 35 equals 180. So I have my first angle, second angle, third angle equaling 180. So all I have to do is solve this equation. I have three constants that I'm just going to add up. I get 189. So I have x plus 189 equals 180. And then I'm just going to solve for x by doing my inverse operations. Don't be worried that you get a negative value for x. You didn't solve for the angle, you just solved for the x. So that's fine. You would never have a negative angle, but you can have a negative value for your variable. And then if I were to do -9 plus 64, I would get a positive 55. And so the value of this angle would be 55 degrees. And then if I add 90 plus 55 plus 35, guess what I get? 180. So this whole page you do like that. You add up your three angles and set them equal to 180 degrees. So one more, I'm going to add 70 plus 55 plus 10x minus 5, and that's going to equal 180 degrees. So same thing, I'm going to combine my constants. So I'll do 55 minus 5 first, which is 50. 50 plus 70 is 120 plus 10x equals 180. See, Miss Picciaboni has to teach 8th grade math and use a calculator now, so I'm a little bit slower, so forgive me. And then I'm just going to solve for x. I get 10x equals 60, divide by 10, divide by 10, x equals 6. And that is your solution. The last thing you're going to do is your triangle properties. So I have them written here, but we just have to remember that whenever there are intersecting lines, the angles created that are directly across from each other are congruent. They are called vertical angles. So if I ever have intersecting lines, these two angles are congruent to each other, and then these two angles would also be congruent to each other. So in number 16, I have two congruent angles, two congruent sides, but I also have intersecting lines, so I know that these two angles are also congruent. So I look and I have one congruent side and then two congruent angles. So I would say these triangles are congruent because of angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. And then I'm gonna just do one more with you. Number 19, we have these intersecting lines. So these two angles